The morning sun of Nero's colony reflected from the silver waters stretching beyond Adrian Voss's cabin. The small settlement sat at the edge of civilization, far from crowded trade routes and even farther from war, exactly where Adrian preferred to be. He sat on a wooden chair overlooking the water, holding a cup of coffee while staring at the colony's weather drone. The drone hovered in front of him. It beeped. He sipped his coffee. The drone beeped again. Adrian narrowed his eyes. "You have something to say?" The drone projected a message. "Warning, high probability of rain." Adrian looked at the sky. Not a single cloud. "You've been saying that for 3 weeks." The drone beeped confidently. Adrian sighed. "One day you're going to be right and never let anyone forget it." A distant rumble interrupted him. Not thunder, something much larger. He looked toward the horizon. A shadow slowly crossed the water, then another, then dozens more. The entire colony suddenly darkened. People emerged from homes and workshops. Children pointed upward. Several transport workers dropped their cargo containers. Above them hung a starship unlike anything Adrian had seen before. It was enormous, a floating city wrapped in glowing rings of blue energy. Its surface shimmered with symbols that looked almost alive. The vessel blocked half the sky. Someone beside Adrian whispered, "Please tell me that's not a tax collector." The colony governor immediately fainted. Adrian couldn't blame him. A beam of pale light descended from the ship and touched the center of town. Moments later, figures emerged. Tall, elegant, humanoid. Their long ears extended gracefully past their shoulders. Silver armor reflected the sunlight as they walked. The crowd instinctively stepped back. The leader approached Adrian directly. That alone was enough to make him suspicious. Whenever people crossed entire sectors of the galaxy to find him, trouble usually followed. The alien bowed slightly. "Adrian Voss," Adrian sighed. "There it is." "There is what?" "The beginning of my problems." The soldier seemed confused. Behind him, one of the colony mechanics snorted loudly. The alien activated a holographic projector. A woman's image appeared. She possessed the same long ears and silver eyes as the soldier's, yet there was unmistakable authority in her posture. "A queen." "Adrian Voss," she said. "I am Queen Elyra of the Velari Dominion." Adrian nearly spilled his coffee. Not because she was royalty, because he recognized the star maps appearing behind her. Military maps. Never a good sign. "I was informed you retired." "I did." "You commanded fleets during the frontier wars." "I survived them." "You authored 17 strategic doctrines still studied throughout human space." Adrian groaned. "I knew publishing those was a mistake." The Queen ignored the comment. "My people face a conflict unlike any we have encountered." The hologram shifted. Entire sectors appeared highlighted in red. Border systems, fleet movements, advancing enemy formations. Even from a glance, Adrian recognized the pattern. Someone was preparing for war, a very large war. "We require your expertise." The colony became silent. Adrian stared at the maps, then at his coffee, then at the maps again. He had spent years avoiding exactly this kind of conversation. "Respectfully, Your Majesty, I retired." "And respectfully," the Queen replied. "The enemy did not?" The crowd collectively murmured. Even Adrian had to admit that was a strong argument. The Queen continued, "A transport will bring you to our capital immediately." "I haven't agreed." "The transport is already landing." Adrian looked upward. A second vessel was descending. He stared at it for several seconds, then at the Queen, then at the ship, then back at the Queen. "You people are remarkably confident." For the first time, a faint smile appeared on Queen Elyra's face. "We traveled 600 light years to find you, Adrian Voss." The hologram faded. The soldiers stepped aside. The transport's landing ramp slowly opened. Beyond it waited the stars, and somewhere among them, a war that had already begun moving toward his doorstep. The journey to the Velari capital took less than an hour. Adrian still wasn't entirely sure how. Every explanation provided by the ship's artificial intelligence only created more questions. "You're telling me we crossed 62 light years in 43 minutes. "Correct. That's impossible." "According to human physics, yes." "Then why does it work?" The AI remained silent for a moment. "Because our scientists were very determined." Adrian stared at the ceiling. "I hate that answer." When the transport emerged from hyperspace, the capital world appeared before them. Adrian found himself standing. Not because of danger, because the sight was impossible to ignore. The planet glowed beneath countless orbital rings. Massive cities floated above the atmosphere. Artificial moons surrounded the world, each covered in shipyards and defense platforms. Entire fleets moved between them, like schools of metallic fish. The Velari Dominion wasn't merely powerful, it was enormous. The transport descended toward the royal district. As they approached the surface, Adrian noticed something unusual. Gardens, thousands of them, forests growing on rooftops, rivers flowing for kerosene. The city looked less like a capital and more like someone had convinced nature and technology to become roommates. The landing platform extended before them. Rows of royal guards waited. Adrian stepped onto the platform, immediately regretted it. A military band began playing. Hundreds of officials bowed. Dozens of hovering cameras appeared from nowhere. Oh no, a nearby officer blinked. Is something wrong? I hate attention. You're a famous war hero. I know, that's the problem. The officer looked genuinely confused. The palace itself seemed endless. Every hallway stretched beneath transparent ceilings that revealed stars overhead. As Adrian followed the escorts deeper inside, he noticed portraits covering the walls. Generations of Velari rulers. Every single one looked intimidating. Then he noticed one portrait where a young royal woman had drawn a mustache on a former king. He stopped. The guards froze. The escorts froze. Everyone froze. Adrian pointed at the portrait. Who did that? Several guards immediately looked nervous. One of them whispered, "We don't talk about that." Why? A voice answered from behind. Because Mother gets angry. Adrian turned. For a brief moment, he forgot what he was about to say. The woman approaching looked human at first glance. Then he noticed the long, elegant ears extending past her shoulders. Silver eyes, dark hair, royal clothing, confidence, and an expression suggesting she found the entire universe amusing. The princess. She stopped beside the portrait. I think the mustache improved it. One guard nearly choked. Adrian looked between the portrait and the princess. You drew it? No. You absolutely drew it. There's no proof. The conversation was interrupted by another voice. Lyriana. The princess instantly straightened. Queen Elyra approached through the hall. Unlike her daughter, there was no playfulness in her expression, only authority. The room immediately became silent. The queen studied Adrian. I trust your journey was comfortable. Your ship broke several laws of physics. Only several? That I noticed. For the first time, a faint smile touched the queen's face. Lyriana looked shocked. You made her smile. What? Do you understand how difficult that is? Lyriana. Sorry, Mother. She wasn't sorry, not even slightly. The queen gestured toward a large chamber. We have much to discuss. Adrian followed her inside. The room transformed as they entered. Holographic maps appeared. Entire sectors of the galaxy floated above the floor. Fleet markers glowed across dozens of systems. Red symbols dominated the frontier. The atmosphere immediately changed. The humor disappeared. War was written everywhere. Adrian slowly approached the projection. He examined fleet movements, supply routes, border defenses, communication nodes. His expression hardened. Queen Elyra noticed. Or, what do you see? Your enemy isn't probing your borders. The room became quiet. Adrian pointed toward several systems. They're mapping weaknesses. Another gesture. They're testing response times. Another. They already know where they'll attack. Several commanders exchanged nervous looks. One elderly admiral frowned. Our prediction systems disagree. Adrian looked at him. Then your prediction systems are wrong. The room became even quieter. The admiral looked offended. The princess looked delighted. Adrian continued studying the map. The more he saw, the less he liked. Someone out there was preparing something very large, something very dangerous. And for the first time since leaving military life behind, he felt the familiar sensation returning. The feeling that always appeared before a war, a feeling he had hoped never to experience again. The first alarm didn't sound like an alarm. It sounded like a polite cough. Every console in the war chamber blinked once, hesitated, Then tried again, more urgently, as if embarrassed for being dramatic. Adrian didn't look up from the holographic map. "That's new," he muttered. Queen Elyra's advisor stepped forward. "Long-range scout network has returned incomplete data." Incomplete how? The advisor hesitated. "They didn't return." That made Adrian look up. The hologram shifted. Entire systems along the Velari frontier were now dim, like candles snuffed out one by one. Not destroyed, not conquered, just silent. Lyriana leaned closer to the projection, her long ears tilting slightly, as if they could hear the missing signals. "That's not invasion," she said. Adrian nodded slowly. "No." A pause stretched. Then he added, "That's someone turning off the conversation before it starts." One of the admirals frowned. "That's not a military term." "It should be," Adrian replied. A faint beep echoed through the room. A small maintenance drone floated in through the ceiling vent, paused, and projected a cheerful message. "System update. Frontier status. Everything is fine." The room stared at it. The drone rotated slightly, as if proud of itself. Adrian pointed. "That's your diagnostic system?" "Yes," said the advisor. "Fire it into the sun." The drone beeped happily again, completely missing the tone. Lyriana snorted. "It thinks we're winning." "We might want to tell it otherwise," Adrian said. The Queen raised a hand. The drone froze mid-air. "Continue," she said coldly. Adrian zoomed the map outward. "Someone isn't just attacking your border systems. They're erasing signal chains. That requires coordination across distances your fleets can't even track in real time." An admiral crossed his arms. "Our ships are the fastest in known space." Adrian glanced at him. "So was every civilization right before it met someone faster." Silence again. Lyriana leaned toward him. "You're very good at making people uncomfortable." "I practiced." "Was it a hobby?" "Survival instinct." A flicker moved across the map. A new region lit up. Not red, not green, blank. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" the Queen asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "And I hate that I don't know." The princess smiled slightly. "That's the first honest thing you've said since arriving." "I'm a very honest person," Adrian said, "mostly when I'm confused." A distant tremor rolled through the palace structure. Not physical, digital. Every hologram in the room flickered for half a second. The advisor panicked. "Was that an attack?" Adrian shook his head. "No." He looked at the empty region again. That was someone noticing we're looking at them. The room grew colder. Even the floating lights dimmed slightly, as if nervous. Lyriana whispered, "So they can see us looking? Or they can feel it," Adrian said. A pause. Then he added, "Either way, I'm officially uncomfortable in a new language." For the first time, Lyriana laughed. It wasn't loud, just a quick bright sound that didn't belong in a war room. Her mother shot her a look. The princess immediately straightened. "Apologies." Strategic, nervous laughter. "That is not a doctrine," an admiral muttered. "It is now," Adrian said. The Queen stepped forward again. "What do you recommend?" Adrian studied the blank region, then the silence, then the memory of every war he had ever survived. "They're not just expanding," he said quietly. "They're searching." "For what?" Lyriana asked. Adrian didn't answer immediately, because the truth didn't feel like something he wanted to say out loud. Finally, he replied, "Something you already have." No one spoke. Even the drones stopped buzzing. Somewhere deep in the palace systems, another scout signal vanished, one by one, like doors closing in the dark. The war did not begin with an explosion. It began with a notification. Every Velari city received it at the same time. A soft chime, a polite pause, then the system message. Contact established. No one celebrated, mostly because no one knew what it meant yet. Adrian stood on the observation deck above the capital's lower atmosphere, watching fleets move like slow constellations across the sky. Beside him, Lyriana leaned on the railing, her long ears catching the wind currents like delicate sensors. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm listening," Adrian replied. "To what?" Everything that isn't speaking. She considered that. That sounds exhausting. It is. Behind them, the sky changed. The first impact didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a mistake in reality. A ripple in space, where light forgot which direction it was supposed to go. Then the second ripple arrived. Then the third. Adrian's hand instinctively reached for a command interface that wasn't there anymore. Old habits didn't die. They just embarrassed you in new environments. That's a fleet jump signature, he said. Lyriana blinked. That many? No, Adrian replied. That precise. A siren finally activated. This one was less polite. The Velari defense grid lit up across the horizon. Shields unfolded like mechanical flowers. Orbital platforms rotated into firing alignment. And then the enemy arrived. Karen vessels emerged not as ships, but as geometric impossibilities, sharp, angular structures that looked like someone had taught darkness how to fold itself. The sky turned into mathematics. Lyriana stepped forward instinctively. Adrian gently pulled her back by the shoulder. "Don't do that," he said. "Do what?" "Heroic standing too close to incoming death." She frowned. "That's not an official term." "It should be," he repeated. The first exchange of fire did not shake the ground. It rewrote it. Energy lattices collided in mid-orbit, folding into luminous spirals that briefly resembled flowers before collapsing into nothing. Entire sections of space flickered like broken holograms. A Velari admiral's voice echoed through the comm system. "Enemy pattern is unstable." Adrian squinted. "No, it's not unstable." The admiral snapped. "Then what is it?" "Confident," Adrian said. A pause. "That's worse," someone muttered. Lyriana watched the battle unfolding above them. "It's beautiful." "It's a math problem trying to eat your house," Adrian replied. She smiled slightly. "We have very different definitions of beauty." Then something strange happened. One of the Karen ships stopped firing. Not damaged, not destroyed, just waiting. Adrian narrowed his eyes. "That's not hesitation," he said quietly. "What is it?" Lyriana asked. He didn't answer immediately, because he recognized it. Target confirmation. "They're not fighting the fleet," he said. "They're testing reactions." A nearby console operator shouted, "Another system just went dark!" Then another, and another. It wasn't destruction. It was silence again. The same silence as before. Lyriana turned toward him. "They're doing the same thing." "Yes," Adrian said. "But faster," she added. "Much faster." A soft mechanical beep interrupted them. A maintenance drone floated between them, wobbling slightly. "System status. War conditions detected. Suggested response. Panic. Optional." Lyriana stared at it. Adrian pointed. "I like your system." The drone beeped proudly. "I don't," Lyriana said. Below them, Velari fleets began responding. Too slowly, Adrian watched the patterns unfold. "They're not reacting to defense grids," he said. "Then what are they reacting to?" Lyriana asked. "Measuring fear." She looked at him. "That's not a tactic." "It is when you're patient enough." A massive shockwave passed through orbital space. The palace lights flickered again. This time, the entire horizon briefly went black. When it returned, several fleet markers were gone. Lyriana's voice dropped. "We're losing ships." Adrian nodded once. "Yes." She looked at him sharply. "And you're calm?" "No," he said. "I'm counting." "Counting what?" "How long until they stop pretending this is a war and start doing what they actually came for?" The silence stretched. Then Lyriana said quietly, "And what is that?" Adrian finally turned toward her. "I think," he said, "they're here for the thing your mother is hiding so well that even I don't know it exists yet." A distant explosion lit the sky. For the first time, Lyriana wasn't smiling, and somewhere in the collapsing silence of space, the Karen fleet continued its patient advance, as if the war was only the surface of something much deeper waiting underneath. Adrian didn't sleep. The palace insisted it was unnecessary. He disagreed out of principle. Instead, he stood in a sealed strategy chamber where the walls displayed shifting constellations of data, fleet losses, system blackouts, probability curves that kept trying and failing to be optimistic. Lyriana entered quietly, carrying 2 steaming cups of something that pretended to be coffee but glowed faintly blue. "I stole this from the Royal Nutrition Lab," she said. "Is it safe?" "Probably." "That's not reassuring." She handed him one anyway. He took a sip. It tasted like burnt metal and childhood memories he didn't recognize. So, she said, sitting on the edge of the table, we're losing. We're learning, Adrian corrected. That sounds like losing with extra steps. Military terminology prefers optimism. She smiled slightly. You're avoiding the question. I'm always avoiding at least 3 questions at any given time. She leaned forward. What are we actually dealing with? Adrian hesitated. Then the room flickered. A new signal appeared in the center of the map. Not Velari. Not Karen. Ancient. The entire system paused, as if the universe itself had forgotten how to render it properly. Lyriana frowned. That wasn't there before. No, Adrian said quietly. It was just not accessible. A warning icon unfolded itself across the projection. Forbidden structure detected. The palace AI added politely, please do not approach the forbidden structure. Adrian blinked. That's new etiquette. Lyriana tilted her head. What structure? Adrian zoomed the map outward, far beyond Velari borders, beyond Karen expansion routes, beyond even the oldest recorded star charts. Something massive sat in empty space, not orbiting anything, not emitting anything, just existing, like a thought the universe refused to finish. Lyriana whispered, that looks old. That, Adrian said, looks like a problem that predates your entire civilization's concept of problems. A soft alarm beeped. The maintenance drone from earlier floated in again. System. Update. Curiosity levels detected as high. Suggestion. Ignore unknown object. Adrian pointed at it. Your system is emotionally compromised. It's trying its best, Lyriana said defensively. Your best is telling me to ignore ancient interstellar anomalies. Yes, that tracks. The Queen entered without announcement. As always, the room immediately felt smaller. What have you found? Elyra asked. Adrian didn't answer immediately. He simply expanded the projection and stepped aside. The Queen studied the structure. For the first time since Adrian had met her, she didn't speak for several seconds. Lyriana broke the silence. Mother, you knew about this? A pause. I knew of it, Elyra said carefully. Adrian looked at her. That's not the same thing. No, she admitted. The silence deepened. Then the Queen spoke again. It is called the Gate of Orm. The room reacted instantly. Several officers stepped back. One whispered, that's a myth. Adrian glanced at him. Everything is a myth until it's inconveniently real. Lyriana crossed her arms. What does it do? The Queen hesitated, then said, it connects regions of space that should not be connected. Adrian nodded slowly. A transit system. No, Elyra said. A mistake. The projection shifted. Ancient war records appeared, fractured, incomplete, civilizations rising, then vanishing, then the gate, then silence. Adrian exhaled. So the Karen Collective is trying to open it? Yes, the Queen said. And you didn't think this was important to mention earlier? I was hoping it would remain theoretical. Adrian looked at Lyriana. Lyriana looked at her mother. Then Lyriana said, so we're currently being attacked by people who want to open a cursed ancient space door. Adrian nodded. That's the simplified version. She paused. That's the worst sentence I've ever heard. A distant tremor shook the palace. This one felt closer. Alarms flickered. The Queen turned sharply. They've reached the outer relic zone. Adrian studied the projections again. Something clicked. They're not searching randomly, he said. Elyra narrowed her eyes. Explain. They already knew where the gate was, Adrian said. They just needed the map to lead them. Lyriana frowned. Then what were they doing before? Adrian's expression darkened slightly. Testing whether anyone was still guarding it. A long silence followed. Even the drone stopped beeping. Then Lyriana sighed. So we've been doing defense exercises while they were doing homework. Adrian nodded. And they finished early. The Queen straightened. We will launch immediate containment. Adrian shook his head. No, he said. All eyes turned to him. He continued, you don't contain something like this. A pause. You race it. Lyriana slowly looked at him. Race it where? Adrian stared at the gate's projection. Before they open it, he said, we get there first. The silence that followed was heavier than any explosion they had yet seen. The ship they used was not a warship. At least that's what the engineers insisted. Adrian stared at the vessel suspended in the hangar and said, it has 13 gun arrays. The engineer nodded proudly. Yes, but technically, it's classified as ceremonial. Lyriana leaned closer to Adrian. Do ceremonies usually disintegrate planets? Only the important ones, he said. The engineer coughed. It also has diplomatic lighting modes. The ship flickered between 3 aggressive shades of blue. Adrian sighed. I miss when ships were honest about what they were. Lyriana tapped the hull. It hums. That's the containment field stabilizing the gravity core. It sounds like it's nervous. It probably is. Queen Elyra arrived last. She did not look at the ship. She looked at Adrian. If this fails, she said calmly, we lose everything. Adrian nodded. If this succeeds, we still might. That is not comforting. I'm not in the comfort business. Lyriana stepped forward. I'm coming too. The queen didn't respond immediately. That was not a request, Lyriana added. Adrian whispered, that's your tone with royalty? It usually works, she said. The queen finally spoke. You will obey command structure. Lyriana smiled. Of course. A pause. Mostly, she added. Somewhere, a junior officer fainted from stress. They entered jump space. Reality folded like a bad memory, trying to forget itself. Adrian watched the stars stretch into thin lines. Lyriana pressed her face against the viewport. Space looks like noodles, she said. It does not, Adrian replied. It does today. The AI chimed in. Warning. Reality integrity at 89%. Adrian frowned. Should that be higher? Not during ceremonial transport, the AI said. I'm going to have a talk with your engineers, Adrian muttered. Lyriana pointed. What's that? A distortion formed ahead, not a planet, not a ship, a scar in space, the relic zone. Massive fragments of ancient structures floated like broken bones of a dead civilization. Artificial suns flickered weakly in the distance, as if unsure whether they were still needed. The ship slowed. Too slowly. Adrian narrowed his eyes. We're being guided in. Lyriana looked up. By what? Something that thinks we belong here. The AI beeped nervously. Unidentified navigation influence detected. Adrian exhaled. Good. So, it's not just me. They docked at a structure that refused to be identified as architecture. It shifted slightly as they approached, like it was adjusting to their perception of it. Lyriana stepped onto the surface first. It immediately stabilized. Did I do that? She asked. Apparently, Adrian said. That's concerning. Yes. Behind them, Queen Elyra and her guards followed. The structure reacted again. Lights appeared along pathways that hadn't existed seconds earlier. Adrian muttered, it's responding to presence. To us? Lyriana asked. To you, he corrected. She blinked. That's worse. They moved deeper. The corridors were not corridors. They were suggestions of direction. Sometimes they were wide halls. Sometimes they were mathematical concepts pretending to be architecture. Adrian hated all of it. I prefer enemies I can punch, he said. Lyriana smiled. You've said that before, and I stand by it. A distant sound echoed through the structure. Not an alarm. Not a system. A memory. The Queen stopped. It is activating. Adrian shook his head. No, it's recognizing us. Lyriana whispered. Recognizing what? Adrian looked at her. That we're late. They reached the chamber. The Gate of Orm was not a door. It was absence shaped into intention, a circular void suspended in geometry that refused to be measured. Even the light avoided it. Lyriana stepped forward involuntarily. Adrian grabbed her wrist. Don't. Her voice was soft. It's calling me. That's exactly why you don't. The Queen's expression tightened. It responds to royal lineage. Adrian looked at her. You knew that part too? I suspected. That's your favorite word today. The structure vibrated. Faraway Quran ships began entering the relic zone. Fast. Too fast. Lyriana pulled gently. We don't have much time. Adrian stared at the gate, then at her, then at the approaching fleet signatures. He exhaled. Fine, he said. We do this the hard way. Lyriana smiled faintly. There's an easy way? No. Good. Behind them, space itself began to fracture toward opening, and for the first time, Adrian realized the gate wasn't waiting for them to stop it. It was waiting for them to understand why it was built at all. The Gate of Orm opened like a thought, finally finishing itself. Not violently, not dramatically, just inevitably. Adrian felt it before he saw it, a pressure behind reality, as if the universe had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. Lyriana stood beside him at the threshold, her long ears trembling slightly, not from fear exactly, but from the sheer scale of whatever was unfolding. The current fleet arrived moments later. Too late. Adrian glanced at them. Of course they're punctual now. Lyriana frowned. That's the part you choose to comment on? I cope in small ways. Queen Elyra stood behind them, flanked by commanders who looked like they had collectively aged a century in the last hour. The Queen spoke quietly. If the gate stabilizes fully, it will connect every mapped region. And the unmapped ones, Adrian added. Yes. Lyriana swallowed. And the war? Adrian looked at the Karen ships hovering at the edge of the fractured space. They stopped being the problem, he said. A pause. Something else becomes it. As if hearing him, the gate reacted. Lightless geometry expanded outward. Ancient structures hidden in its folds awakened. The relic zone began to reorganize itself, like a sleeping mind remembering it had limbs. A Karen vessel fired. The shot disappeared. Not blocked, not deflected, forgotten. Adrian exhaled. Right. That's new. Lyriana glanced at him. Is that bad? It's always bad when physics starts improvising. The maintenance drone from earlier somehow reappeared, wobbling near the battlefield. System update. Event classification. Big trouble. Adrian pointed at it. Finally, accurate labeling. The drone added, suggestion, leave area. Lyriana nodded. That one I agree with. The battle didn't escalate, it dissolved. Karen ships attempted formation changes, but the gate answered faster than strategy could form. Entire fleets were translated into non-positions, as if they had never decided to arrive. One admiral whispered, "We're being edited out." Adrian heard it and said, "That's one way to put it." Lyriana turned to him. "Can we stop it?" He looked at the gate, then at her, then at the Queen. "No," he said, "but we can redirect it." Queen Elyra stepped forward. Redirect how? Adrian hesitated. For the first time since this began, his answer wasn't tactical. It was personal. The gate reacts to intention, he said. Not force. Lyriana understood first. So whoever holds it shapes what it becomes. Adrian nodded. The Queen's voice was quiet. And what does it want? Adrian looked at Lyriana. It already chose, he said. A long silence followed. Then Lyriana laughed softly. So I accidentally became a cosmic key. That is not the official term, Adrian said. It should be, she replied. The decision came quickly after that. Too many lives depended on delay. Lyriana stepped forward again, and this time, Adrian didn't stop her. Are you sure? He asked. No, she said honestly, but I'm less unsure than the universe. That's not a measurement? It is, now. She reached the threshold. The gate responded, but not violently, recognizing, accepting. The ancient structure began to stabilize, folding inward instead of outward. The Karen fleet, stripped of access, drifted into inert space pockets where war had no meaning. They did not explode. They simply stopped being part of the equation. Adrian let out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding for days. That's anticlimactic, he muttered. Lyriana called back from the threshold. I think that's the point. When the gate finally settled, it did not close. It became dormant, a locked possibility instead of an active threat. The relic zone quieted. Even the drones stopped suggesting panic. Weeks later, the war officially ended. The Karen Collective withdrew, not defeated, but redirected into containment treaties that required several hundred pages of diplomatic language and at least 2 apologies that no one fully understood. Adrian stood once again in the Velari capital, but it didn't feel like the same place. He had changed. The queen approached him. "You were correct," she said simply. "That's rare," Adrian replied. "I will not make it a habit." Lyriana appeared beside them, entirely too cheerful for someone who had briefly become a metaphysical control point for interstellar reality. "I miss the gate," she said. "No, you don't," Adrian replied. "I miss the part where everyone listened when I walked into a room. That will wear off," he said. She frowned. Rude. Later, Adrian prepared to leave. The queen offered him a permanent advisory position. He declined. She offered again. He declined again. Lyriana watched this exchange with increasing amusement. "You're rejecting royalty twice," she said. "That's almost impressive." "I prefer quiet problems," Adrian said. She tilted her head. "You don't get quiet problems anymore." He looked at her. She looked back. A pause. Then he sighed. "Unfortunately, I noticed." When the transport arrived, he boarded. At the ramp, he stopped, turned back. Lyriana stood there, ears catching the wind again, like she always did when she was thinking too much. "You're going back to silence," she said. "I'm going back to peace," he corrected. She smiled faintly. "Same thing to you." He didn't argue. For once, he didn't need to. As the ship lifted, Adrian realized something simple. He had come here as a strategist. He was leaving as something worse, someone who understood that wars weren't won by strength or fear, but by knowing when not to fight at all. Below, Lyriana waved once, casually, as if cosmic reality manipulation was just another part of her week. Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Then the ship disappeared into the stars, and for the first time in a long time, the galaxy stayed quiet.